Hello and welcome to the penultimate episode of this video series. I'll be talking about shallow and deep copies in C++. In our first exercise, we're going to make some ingredients. Ingredients are just going to be a simple class with a name and number. We're not going to do anything fancy here. But what I want to show is in a main function how I can make an ingredient and then how to copy it by saying one ingredient equals another one, and what will happen if I double the amount of a second ingredient. So let's open up our environment. And what we're going to see is what happens when I change a copy of something. So in our videos, we are on 11a shallow deep copy. I don't know if I can pull this off in a notebook. I just don't trust it. So I think I'm just going to make a new file here. This will be example 1. Get my instructions, my libraries, include and let's make a class called ingredient. And in my ingredient class, we'll just have a name and a number. I suppose a display is probably useful. Going to write the name and the amount in a new line, nothing too fancy. Okay, and now I'll make an ingredient. Oh, I should get a constructor, that would help. Ingredient string n int a, apply these to name n amount a. So ingredient, my ingredient. How about we do sugar equals ingredient and we'll go with sugar, let's say 100. Now what happens if I say sugar copy is sugar? We'll take sugar copy dot amount times equals 2. We'll double how much sugar is there. And let's see how much I have. Well, how about we change the name to sugar copy dot name equals sugar copy. Oops, sugar copy. And then we'll do sugar dot display sugar copy dot display. And let's see what happens. So I have my ingredient class. It has a constructor for a name and amount, and I can display the name and the amount. I have made sugar, 100 units of it. I made a copy of sugar. I changed the name and the number of the sugar copy, and I'm displaying them. Okay, and this makes sense, right? We have our first sugar, it has an amount of 100. Our second sugar copy has an amount of 200. But you notice something kind of neat here is I never overrode the equals operator for ingredient. So what is actually happening in line 20? Well, what's happening in line 20 is the computer knows that an ingredient takes up a certain amount of space. So sugar copy is given the amount of space that's necessary to be there, and the name and the amount are populated with the exact same data that's been used for sugar. So effectively, sugar copy and sugar are the same two blocks of memory, just in two different spots in the computer, so that when I change one block, it doesn't affect the other one. But what happens when we get more involved? And so our next example is going to show how this might change with one simple alteration. So in exercise 2, we're going to repeat exactly what we did, except we're going to use pointers for our member variables. And what will happen to the amounts of these ingredients? Also, what happens if I include a destructor? We'll try that one after. First, I'm just going to try to replace things with pointers. So we are looking for So we're going to change our constructor a little bit. So the first thing we have to do is these have to be pointers, which means this has to be the name, the amount. I still want to be able to do this, and then obviously we're going to have to change this to be so sugar copy dot name is going to be a pointer, so I'm going to have to dereference that pointer. Dereference the pointer. Dereference the pointer. Oh, let's copy the instructions as well. And for my constructor here, we're going to have to say name equals new string n, amount equals new int a. Because basically now that we have pointers here, we need dynamic memory for these actual values. Actually, I think I might need to do this in 4 lines. I don't know if I'm allowed to pass these parameters. So name is new string, amount is new int, at name equals n, at amount equals a. I think I may have to do that just to get everything there. Okay, and let's compile this and run. But wait, what has happened? We were supposed to see sugar and sugar copy, but now we see 2 sugar copies, even though I've only modified sugar copy down here. What has happened? Well, like I mentioned, the data that is used in sugar and sugar copy is the exact same. 1 block of memory, 1 block of memory. But this time, because I am using pointers here, when I copy over this pointer and this pointer, well, they're the same pointer. So sugar copy and sugar both have the same pointer to a name in the computer. And what this means is I have done what's called a shallow copy. I haven't actually allocated new memory for the new information that is here. And so more stuff will need to be done in order to make what we call a deep copy, where if I change the memory that's used for my sugar copy, when I change the name and the amount, it shouldn't, at least we don't want it to, affect the original entity. Another thing to note is what happens if I put it in a destructor. So let's say that I write, let's space some of this out a little bit. Display, clear this up. Ingredient, I spelled that wrong. Delete name, delete amount. File, run. Note I didn't even have to do anything else other than add the deconstructor for my program to actually crash. And the reason is, when my program is over, it attempts to delete, to free up the memory for my ingredients. And so it tries to free up the memory for sugar, no problem. When it tries to free up the memory for sugar copy, well, the name and the amount have already been deleted because these are both pointing to the exact same memory that was modified to say sugar copy and 200 units. And so after I've already deleted them, I then try to delete them again, which is not going to work. So this is a problem, and it cannot be solved unless we switch from shallow copying to deep copying. But first, a few more things we're going to explore before we get there. So before we get to that, we're going to make a copy constructor. So we're going to write a copy constructor for ingredient. We'll use this in our main function, ask the user for the name and amount of an ingredient, and make 3 copies of it, modifying them so each one has twice the amount of the previous. So let's let me see here. Duplicate this. Oops. Okay. Here's my instructions. Make a copy constructor. So that means that in addition to having my normal constructor here, I need a new one. A new copy constructor. Ingredient is going to take another ingredient, specifically a reference to another ingredient, which we'll call other. And so now our name and amount are still going to be new dynamic memory, but instead of n, we have other arrow, other dot name dereferenced, and the amount is the other amount. And so with this, what we should be able to do is use this method when we're building our new ingredients to allocate new memory and to copy over the data from the other one. This is what's called a deep copy. When I make my second copy of the ingredient, not only does it have all the same properties as the original one, but it also will have new information here. Now, will this change the code that we have already written? Let's see. So the answer is yes. When I say ingredient sugar copy equals sugar, now that I have this copy constructor, writing the equal sign will actually make it so that I have newly allocated memory. In fact, I can actually even bring back the deconstructor and it should no longer crash my program. There we go. Now, I can ask the user for the name and amount of ingredient, make 3 copies of it, and then modify it so each one has twice the amount of the previous. So I can say, please enter a name of an ingredient. Input, same input. Please enter the amount. Int amount. Let's call this name, since it's name, and this one is amount. So now I have name and amount, so I can say ingredient equals name and amount, and it says to make 3 copies of it. So we'll make copy 1, copy 2, copy 3. Before I copy them, let's actually copy the previous ones. And as I copy them, we'll double them. So copy 1 dot amount is a pointer to an amount. Let's double it. Copy 3, copy 2, and then finally, ingredient dot display copy 1, copy 2, copy 3. All right, let's see what we get. So let's go with flour, 50. And hey, now we got 50 flour, then 100 flour, then 200 flour, then 400 flour, and they're all different because now they're all being deep copied every time I make a new one. So here we now have deep copying as implemented by our copy constructor. All right, on to our last exercise. Okay, in our last exercise, we're going to overload the assignment operator equals for ingredient. And our main function will ask the user for 2 ingredients, ask which one they prefer, and make the other ingredient into their preferred choice. So let's duplicate this. Here is our instruction. Okay, and now we have to overload the operator equals. Now, one thing to think about is, what is this going to return? Well, what it's going to take is pretty easy. It's going to take the exact same thing as the copy constructor does, which is a reference to another ingredient. What's it going to return? Whoa, why was I... That was weird. Something weird happened there. Okay, very strange. Now, what's it going to return? Well, when you think about it, if I have an equal sign and something is on the right-hand side, what I should get back is a value I can put into this class. That means that I'm looking for an ingredient to get back. but not just an ingredient, particularly a reference to an ingredient. I don't want to be allocating new memory. I just want to be able to transform one ingredient into another. So what I want to do is I want to say, first of all, I need to delete the current name and delete the current amount, because otherwise I have a memory leak. Every time I make an equals, if I don't do this delete, then the memory that I allocated when I created the ingredient is just going to hang around the computer forever, and it's not going to be safe. So now that I've deleted these things, I can say name equals new string other dot name dereferenced. And the amount equals new int other dot amount. And now when I think about it, well, wait a second. All I've done is modified the current ingredient. I haven't actually figured out what am I going to return. Well, I guess what I actually want to return is this. But now you have to remember, what is the word this? The word this is a pointer to the current ingredient. I don't want a pointer to the current ingredient. I want the current ingredient. So I have to dereference that pointer to get this. And so now down below, I can ask the user for an ingredient. Get my first ingredient. And then I can get my second ingredient. Don't need to declare these variables again. And then I can say, which do you prefer, 1 or 2? Choice, C into choice, if choice is 1, else if choice is 2. And I can say, ingredient 2 equals ingredient 1. Or if I prefer choice 2, ingredient 1 is ingredient 2. You chose ingred1.display, ingred2.display. And so let's talk about what this is now going to do. I ask the user for 2 sets of name and amount, and I make ingredients for those name and amount. Then I ask which one do they prefer, the first one or the second one. If they prefer the first one, then I turn the second one into the first one. If they prefer the second one, I make the first one into the second one. So now there are duplicates. And then I should be able to show what did they choose that got duplicated. So let's see what happens. So let's say sugar, 100, flour, 50. And let's say I prefer 2. Now both of them are flour. There's something to be very careful about though, which is, what if I do this? Intuitively, you would say, this should do nothing, right? Because you would think it shouldn't do anything. Is that true though? Sugar, 100, flour, 50. Let's go with 1. Something seems to have happened. So the name of my ingredient has disappeared and the amount is gone and just becomes some wild number. Why is that? Well, when I set my one ingredient to be the same as itself, we go to the operator equals, we delete the name, we delete the amount, we make the name a new name equal to, well, what is other.name? It just got deleted. we just got rid of it. So our new name is nothing, basically, because we have not any name to go on. And the amount is some new gibberish amount because, again, we've erased the memory. So we have to be very careful to make sure that we only do this if this is not equal to the other ingredient. If this is the other ingredient, then we definitely do not want to do that. Now I think if I do this properly, oh, made a mistake here. What did I mess up? I think I have the wrong comparison. Well, that's not very, I don't think I can use not equals potentially. I think I'd say if not this is other. Actually, I think what I can do is I can say if this is not equal to the address of the other. This should do what I'm looking for, is given the other thing, they should have different addresses. If they have the same address, that's a problem. That should work. Yeah, there we go. Sugar 100, flour 50, the first one, and hey, look, everything is okay now. So very important to note that you do need to include this in your operator equals, otherwise you can lead into some trouble. So what have we done? We've switched over from doing a shallow copy to a deep copy. That's not to say shallow copy is never useful. There are times where you do want to do what we actually did in this second exercise, where when we copy one over, we keep the same references, but you need to be very careful of which references you want to keep and which ones you want to dispose of. And so I think that wraps up everything for this video. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the last one of the series.